I'm probably going to be dead by the time you watch this. Not because I'm sick, not because of an accident, but because I saw a photo of my own death and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Let me back up. 3 of my best friends are already gone, all dead within 3 months of each other. And it started the day we found a camera buried in the woods. A camera that had photos inside it that shouldn't have been possible. Photos of places we'd never been. Photos taken inside our homes. Photos of us. And photos of how each of us would die on the last one left. I've watched this thing take everyone I care about one by one. And I know I'm next. But before it happens, I need to tell someone what we found out there. I need someone to know this wasn't suicide or coincidence or bad luck. This was something else. Something that's been waiting in those woods for someone to dig it up. We found a camera buried in the woods. The photos weren't normal. I need to tell you something that happened to me and my friends last summer. Something that still keeps me up at night. Something that makes me check over my shoulder every single day. And I need to get it out because maybe if I tell someone what happened, they'll believe me or at least understand why I am the way I am now. It was July 2023. The heat in Oregon was brutal that summer. The kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and the asphalt soft under your shoes. Me and my 3 best friends had just graduated high school a month earlier, and we were trying to squeeze every last drop out of that freedom before college started pulling us in different directions. My name is Marcus, and the others were Tyler, Jenna, and Kayla. We'd been inseparable since freshman year. Tyler was the adventurous one, always pushing us to do stupid things. Jenna was the skeptic who rolled her eyes at everything, but always came along anyway. And Kayla was the calm one who kept us from completely losing it when things got weird. We'd spent that whole summer hiking trails around our town, just outside Portland. There's this massive forest preserve about 20 minutes from where we lived, and we thought we'd explored every inch of it over the years. But Tyler had found some old forum post about an abandoned lookout tower deep in the woods that supposedly nobody had been to in decades. Of course, he was obsessed with finding it. It was a Saturday morning when we headed out. I remember because my mom made pancakes before we left and told me to be back before dark. The sky was this perfect clear blue without a single cloud, and the temperature was already climbing past 80 degrees by 9 a.m. We packed light. Just water bottles, some trail mix, and our phones even though we knew the signal would die about half a mile in. The hike started normal. We followed the main trail for about an hour, passing a few other hikers and their dogs. But then Tyler pulled out his phone and showed us where we needed to veer off into the unmarked woods. Jenna immediately protested, saying we'd get lost, but Tyler had downloaded some offline maps and promised he knew what he was doing. So we left the trail. The temperature dropped almost immediately once we got under the thick canopy of Douglas firs and hemlocks. It was darker too, quieter. The only sounds were our footsteps on the dried pine needles and the occasional bird call echoing through the trees. We walked for what felt like forever. My phone said it was almost noon when Tyler suddenly stopped and pointed ahead. There was something sticking out of the ground about 30 feet away. At first I thought it was a root or maybe a piece of old fence, but as we got closer, I could see it was artificial. Metal, rusted orange and brown from years of exposure. It was a small metal box, the kind you might use for storing documents or maybe photography equipment. It was buried at an angle with just one corner poking up through the dirt and decomposing leaves. Tyler immediately dropped to his knees and started digging around it with his hands. Jenna asked what he was doing and said we should leave it alone, that it probably belonged to someone. But Tyler was already pulling it free from the earth. The box was maybe a foot long and half as wide. There was a latch on the front that was rusted shut. Kayla found a rock and Tyler used it to bang the latch until it finally popped open with a sound that made us all jump. Inside the box, wrapped in a deteriorating plastic bag, was a camera. Not a digital camera. An old film camera. The kind my dad used to have in the 90s before everything went digital. It was a Canon AE, one if I remember right. Black body with a lens that still looked surprisingly intact considering how long it must have been buried there. Tyler pulled it out and turned it over in his hands. The leather grip was cracked and peeling, but otherwise the camera looked functional. He tried to open the back to check for film, but it was stuck. Jenna made another comment about leaving it and how this was probably evidence for something, but Tyler was already slipping it into his backpack. We kept hiking after that trying to find the lookout tower, but we never did. Either Tyler's directions were wrong or the thing had been torn down years ago. By 3 p.m. we were exhausted and turned back. The whole hike out Tyler kept talking about the camera, about how cool it was. about how he was going to take it to this camera shop downtown and see if there was film inside. I remember the sun was starting to hang lower in the sky when we finally made it back to the parking lot. We were all sunburned and tired, and honestly, I'd kind of forgotten about the camera by the time Tyler dropped me off at home around 6. But then 3 days later, Tyler called me. His voice sounded strange, tight, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. He told me he'd taken the camera to the shop and they'd managed to open it, and there was film inside. Old film. Expired probably decades ago. But the guy at the shop said he could try developing it anyway, just to see if anything came out. Tyler had picked up the photos that morning. He wanted us all to come over and see them. I got to Tyler's house around 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening. Jenna and Kayla were already there sitting on the couch in his basement where we always hung out. Tyler looked pale. Really pale. Like he hadn't slept. There was a manila envelope sitting on the coffee table in front of him. He waited until we were all settled before he opened it and pulled out a stack of photos. Maybe 20 or 30 of them. The photo paper was that old-school glossy kind that feels different from modern prints. Tyler laid out the first few photos on the table. They were dark, grainy, but you could make out what they showed. The first photo was of the forest. Trees just like the ones we'd been hiking through. But in the center of the frame, standing between two large firs, was a person. They were far away and slightly blurred, but you could tell they were facing the camera. They were wearing what looked like dark clothes, and their face was just a pale oval in the shadows. The second photo was similar, but closer. The same person, or maybe a different person. Still too blurry to make out details. Still just standing there among the trees, staring at whoever was holding the camera. Jenna said the photos were creepy, but probably just someone taking pictures on a hike years ago. Nothing unusual about that. But then Tyler laid out the next photo. This one was different. It showed a house. A normal suburban house with white siding and a red door. There was a car in the driveway. A silver sedan. And standing on the front porch, barely visible in the shadows, was a figure. The same dark clothes. The same pale face. Kayla leaned forward and said the house looked familiar. Tyler's hands were shaking as he pointed at the mailbox number visible in the corner of the photo. It was Jenna's address. We all turned to look at Jenna. Her face had gone white. She grabbed the photo and held it close to her eyes. She said that was definitely her house. That was her mom's car in the driveway. But the photo was old. Faded and discolored like it had been taken years ago. How could a camera buried in the woods have a photo of Jenna's house? Tyler said there was more. The next photo showed the interior of a room. A bedroom. There were posters on the walls and a desk with a laptop. The angle was from the doorway looking in. And there in the center of the frame, sitting on the bed, was the figure again. Clearer now. You could see they were wearing a with the hood up. Their face was still obscured by shadow, but you could see their hands resting on their knees. Kayla said she recognized that room. It was Tyler's bedroom. Tyler nodded. He said he'd recognized it immediately. The posters were ones he'd had up 2 years ago. The laptop was his old one that had broken and been replaced. This photo had somehow been taken inside his room years ago. Jenna stood up and said this was insane. That someone was messing with us. That maybe Tyler had set this whole thing up as some kind of prank. But I could see in Tyler's eyes that he was genuinely terrified. This wasn't a prank. He laid out more photos. Point 1 showed the parking lot of our high school. Empty except for a single figure standing near the entrance. Another showed the inside of Kayla's car. The figure was in the back seat, barely visible in the rearview mirror. Point 1 photo showed the food court at the mall we always went to. The figure was standing behind the counter of the Chinese food place, just staring forward. Every photo had this person in it. Always distant. Always in shadow. Always watching. But then Tyler got to the last few photos and his hands started shaking so badly, he almost dropped them. He laid them out in a row. The first showed a car wrapped around a tree. The front end was completely destroyed. Crushed inward. The windshield was shattered. And through the broken glass, you could see someone in the driver's seat slumped forward against the deployed airbag. The photo was dark and grainy, but you could make out blonde hair. Jenna has blonde hair. The second photo showed a body of water. A lake, or maybe a river. The surface was dark and still. But just beneath the surface, you could see the pale outline of a face looking up. Arms spread out. Hair floating around the head like a halo. Kayla has long brown hair, just like in the photo. The third photo showed a basement. Concrete floor. Exposed pipes on the ceiling. And hanging from one of those pipes by a rope was a figure. Feet dangling above the ground. Face obscured by shadow. That basement looked exactly like Tyler's basement where we were sitting. and the fourth photo showed a figure lying on a floor, arms splayed out, a dark pool spreading around them. The angle was from above looking down. You couldn't see the person's face, but they were wearing a red jacket. I own a red jacket. It's my favorite one. I wear it constantly. Nobody said anything for a long time. Jenna finally broke the silence. She said this was sick, that someone had made these photos to scare us, that it was Photoshop or AI or something. But her voice was shaking. Tyler said the camera shop guy had confirmed the film was decades old, that these photos had been taken years ago with technology that didn't exist back then. Kayla picked up the photo of the person underwater and stared at it. She asked quietly what we were supposed to do. I said we should go to the police. Show them the photos. Tell them about the camera. But Tyler said they wouldn't believe us, that they'd think it was a prank or that we'd made the photos ourselves. That we argued for over an hour. Jenna wanted to throw the photos away and forget we ever found the camera. Kayla wanted to go back to the woods and bury the camera again. Tyler didn't know what he wanted. Eventually, we all went home. We agreed not to tell anyone and to think about what to do next. But I couldn't sleep that night. I kept seeing that photo of the figure lying on the floor in the red jacket. Kept imagining it was me. The next day, Jenna called me crying that she'd been driving to work that morning. Taking the same route she always took down Highway 26. She came around a curve going maybe 50 miles per hour when a deer jumped out in front of her car. She swerved. Her car went off the road and straight toward a tree. She said in that split second before impact, all she could think about was the photo. The car wrapped around the tree, the blonde hair visible through the shattered windshield. But her car stopped 6 inches from the trunk. Her tires had caught on a patch of gravel, and she'd managed to brake just in time. 6 inches. That's all that separated her from the exact scene in the photo. She was hysterical. She said the photo was trying to happen, that it was predicting something or causing something, and we needed to do something about it right now. That we all met up again that night at Tyler's house. Nobody had slept. We all looked like we'd aged 5 years in 2 days. Tyler had been researching online. He'd found stories about cursed objects and prophetic photographs. Most of it sounded like internet nonsense, but there were a few threads that caught his attention. Stories about objects that showed the future. About cameras that captured moments that hadn't happened, yet one post mentioned that destroying the photos might break whatever connection they had to reality. That by eliminating the physical image you could prevent it from manifesting. He sounded crazy, but we were desperate. We gathered up all the photos and took them to Tyler's backyard. We put them in his dad's old metal fire pit and poured lighter fluid over them. Tyler lit a match and dropped it in. The photos caught fire immediately. The flames were strange. They burned blue and green for a few seconds before turning normal orange. And as the photos curled and blackened in the heat, I swear I could see shapes moving in the flames. Faces. The same pale face from the photos staring out at us from the fire. Then it was over. The photos were ash. We stood there breathing hard and covered in smoke. Jenna said she felt better, like a weight had been lifted. Kayla agreed. Tyler said maybe it was over. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd made a mistake. 2 days later, Kayla didn't show up to meet us at the mall like we'd planned. She wasn't answering her phone. Tyler drove to her house and knocked, but nobody answered. Her car was in the driveway. We called the police for a wellness check. They found her 3 hours later. She'd gone hiking alone that morning at a trail near her house. Somehow she'd slipped on wet rocks near a creek and fallen into the water. She must have hit her head on the way down. The current had pulled her into a deeper pool. They found her face up beneath the surface, arms spread out, long brown hair floating around her head, exactly like the photo. The funeral was 4 days later. I couldn't stop thinking about how we'd burned the photos, how we thought we'd stopped it, but maybe burning them had made it worse. Maybe we'd sealed the predictions into place instead of preventing them. Tyler completely fell apart after Kayla died. He stopped answering calls, stopped coming out. Jenna and I tried to check on him, but he wouldn't talk to us. Then 2 weeks after the funeral, Tyler's mom called me at 1 a.m. She'd found him in the basement. He'd hung himself from one of the pipes, just like the photo. I didn't go to Tyler's funeral. I couldn't. I spent 3 days locked in my room trying to understand what was happening. Jenna came over once, but we didn't know what to say to each other. We'd lost 2 friends in 3 weeks, and we both knew we were next. Jenna sent me a text message a week later at 2 a.m. It just said, "I'm sorry, Marcus. I can't do this. I love you." I called her immediately, but she didn't answer. I drove to her house. Her parents were out of town. The front door was unlocked. I found her in the garage. She'd run a hose from her car's exhaust pipe through the window. The engine was still running. She was already gone. That was 3 months ago. I'm the only one left now. I think about that last photo constantly. The one of the figure in the red jacket lying on the floor with the dark pool spreading around them. I haven't worn that jacket since the day we burned the photos. I threw it away, but I don't think that matters. The photos showed the future. Our futures. And burning them didn't stop anything. If anything, it made it happen faster. I've tried everything to prevent it. I don't go anywhere alone. I've talked to therapists and priests. I've tried to convince myself it's not real, that it's survivor's guilt making me paranoid. But I know better. Sometimes late at night, I see movement in the corners of my vision. A dark figure standing in shadows. Watching me. Waiting. I don't know when it's going to happen. The photo didn't have a date or a specific location. Just me on the floor in that red jacket. But I know it's coming. Maybe that's why I'm telling you this now. Because I need someone to know what happened to us. I need someone to understand that we weren't making it up or going crazy. We found something in those woods that we weren't supposed to find. A camera that showed us things we weren't supposed to see. And now we're all paying for it. If you're listening to this and you ever find something buried in the woods, something that doesn't belong there, do yourself a favor. Leave it buried. Walk away. Don't dig it up. Don't bring it home. Because some things are buried for a reason. And some futures are better left unseen that I don't know how much time I have left. Could be days. Could be hours. But I keep that last photo in my mind constantly, trying to figure out where it's going to happen. When it's going to happen. Maybe I can stop it. Maybe I can change it. But I don't think so. The photos weren't predictions. They were promises. And I think my promise is almost due.